Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for December 12th, 2022. Now, we've got a lot to talk about because there's just so much stuff going on this week, so I'll try and keep it short, sweet, and straight to the point, but I cannot guarantee as to how long this video is actually going to be, because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know. But I do want to direct your guys' attention to the screen that you guys see right now. One, because it shows a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about, but two, because we have got a massive trough here, and this is probably one of the craziest things I've seen on water vapor imagery here, satellite imagery, in a very long time. We've got this huge trough, this giant jet stream right within there, and you can see the kind of curling of these clouds indicating that we have this gigantic low pressure system. We actually have two right next to each other in two different spots. So that's just something that I wanted to show you guys relatively quickly. Before we continue with the video, please be sure to like, as it does help out my channel a lot, and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you stay up to date with all the latest information, including a live stream tomorrow that will come for tomorrow's severe weather event. And let's get into it here because, once again, I said we got a lot of stuff, and we'll start with the current hazards, the current warnings and watches that have been issued by the National Weather Service. You see these kind of orange salmon colors. These are blizzard warnings, so we are anticipated to have a blizzard over the next 24, 36, 48 hours across portions of the northern plains. So if you guys live in Nebraska, portions of Colorado, Wyoming, as well as South Dakota and Montana, you guys are going to be seeing some blizzard conditions as well as some pretty high snowfall rates, making travel very hazardous across the area. We'll also move over real quickly to the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook here. We'll start with our severe weather outlook today. This is day one, so this is for Monday, and we have a 2 out of 5 in the severe weather scale indicated in the yellow and a 1 out of 5 in this dark green. Now, do not be surprised if some weird stuff happens, because this is the type of event here today that'll do that. We have a 5% chance for tornadoes here overnight, a cold core event, because the reason why I say cold core is usually when I talk about severe weather, you want it to be kind of 60-degree dew points and above. The temperatures don't even get to that spot. It's the low to mid 50s, and some weird stuff can happen, especially with the type of trough that we have here with a significant wind shear that we do have. So do not be surprised if some of these storms actually do form, create supercells, and essentially produce tornadoes. That will be something interesting to see overnight. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. The main thing that we've been talking about since the last video that we've had is this event here on Tuesday. We now have a 3 out of 5, or it's kind of been there for a while since the day 4 and the day 5 outlook, but we've had a 3 out of 5 in the severe weather scale indicated in orange over here for portions of eastern Texas, as well as central to northern Louisiana and extreme southwestern portions of Mississippi. We do have a 10% chance for tornadoes here, as well as a little hatch risk. You can see the kind of mesh area overlapping the 10% area for tornadoes. So because of that, we could anticipate some significant tornadoes as well tomorrow. We'll get into that a little bit later on. We also have the leftovers of this event that will continue to move on through into Wednesday, and I do believe that Wednesday could have the same output as tomorrow does on Tuesday. So watch out for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but we do currently have a 2 out of 5 in the severe weather scale. Would not be surprised if a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale got issued for areas on the furthern western portion of that 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. So essentially southeastern Louisiana, as well as central to southern portions of Mississippi and southern portions of Alabama. You guys definitely need to watch out for that severe weather risk on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we also have an additional 15% chance for severe weather for portions of Florida, as well as extreme southeastern portions of Georgia, and even the southernmost tip of South Carolina. We'll move over now to the models here. We'll start out with the general view. We'll go through for about 3 to 4 days, and then we'll get into the details of the short-term forecast before we get into what could later on be the evolution of the setup for the northeast and a potential nor'easter that could head on through. So let's talk about the central and the southeastern portions of the United States here real quickly. As we get from Monday into Tuesday, we see our low pressure system really starting to intensify here. Notice how it's at 992 millibars. We have a lot of snow on the northern and the northwestern portions of this low pressure system, and then we have these bands that are elongating itself This is kind of our dry line and or cold front, and this is going to create your overnight severe weather setup over here. As this continues to progress, we'll get into Tuesday in the afternoon. You can see the boundary continues to move on through into portions of that severe weather setup for Tuesday, and the snow continues to elongate as well further in towards portions near the upper Midwest. And this will actually start to go in waves, especially for portions near Minnesota and Wisconsin. You'll see that as this propagates, you have a wave of snow that kind of moves on through here about Wednesday morning, and it'll continue to linger. It'll go away, and then you'll have another wave that'll kind of just propagate through. And that is really going to be kind of a double whammy, if you will, for your winter weather setup up there. So something interesting to kind of point out there ahead of time. But what we kind of glanced over is what's happening on Wednesday. So we'll backtrack to Wednesday morning, get to Wednesday afternoon right here. This is noon, and we have a lot of showers and thunderstorms that are not only in the Gulf of Mexico, but further inland into portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So that is expected to continue to linger on through. And then that same line will continue to march its way into portions of the southeast. We look here at the timings here for tonight's event here. We'll take a look with the HRRR model, and by about 10 to 11 p.m., the timing, by the way, is at the top left-hand portion of your screen, in Central Standard Time. My apologies. And you see your storms really don't start to form until about 9 to 10 p.m., and some of which don't even start to get relatively big until a little bit after that. But you notice that they have these little kinks in the line. You see these little hooks just like that. That is supercellular in nature, and I would not be surprised if some portions over here northeast of Garden City or even near Garden City and Dodge City to potentially get those same style of storms, and that'll continue to linger on through until after midnight. We'll move down further south towards Oklahoma and Texas. You can see the very same thing that I was just mentioning earlier, except according to the HRRR, we have our northern panhandle of Texas area over here, near the border of Oklahoma as well. These storms don't actually get as intense as the areas up near Kansas. So it'll be something interesting to make a note of as to whether or not these storms actually do stuff like that. I honestly would not be surprised if they did, so I would continue to monitor that accordingly. If I do need to do a live stream, I could potentially do that tonight as kind of an emergency live stream if I do need to. But for right now, I'm kind of holding off on it. And we'll just kind of see from there as to what kind of goes on. But as this continues overnight, past midnight, you'll see this kind of forms out more into a line segment. And so how this thing really is starting to kind of move about in itself is a big trough. Once again, we showed in the beginning of the actual video here, this big current of wind, this big jet stream that is really surging a lot of wind shear right within the area. And so you can see here, we're currently at Monday now. We'll move off into Tuesday, and you can see our big trough continues to elongate further and further, and this is really starting to surge a lot of very strong wind shear across portions of the Central Plains into the Deep South. And pair that with some relatively good moisture. I talked about how tonight's event won't really have too much moisture. Well, here it is. You can see once we get to 0Z, which is about 6 p.m. Central, I'll even move it over to 8 p.m. Central. You notice we don't really have super high dew points. You need about 60 degrees or above to get your classic style of severe weather. But there are some instances to where if you have the right environment for it, you could actually get it in less than that with your moisture content. And so we call this a cold core setup, a cold core style severe weather event, to where you could even get tornadoes within some of these style of storms. And so, in this instance here for tonight, we do have a setup that is somewhat conducive for tornadoes. But other than that, we move off onto Tuesday, and you see that these blues really surge up. This is our 60-degree dew points and above, and we have a plethora of it. We actually have a very steep dry line that's also going to fire off some storms out in front of that, pairing with a lot of deep and rich moisture across the region. And, you pair the strong wind shear that we talked about as well as the moisture with some of the energy that we're going to get, which if we move over to our convective available potential energy, you do see that we have some of these light blues to even yellows in some of these areas over here. That is about 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram of convective available potential energy. This is essentially what thunderstorms feed off of to form or sustain. So if you got more of that, then you're going to get storms that are going to kind of go on for quite some time. So when we get into the timings of this for tomorrow, you can see that we're at 11 to 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. I should say, 11 a.m., 12 p.m. So about noon, this will move off, and it's about 2 p.m. to which you can start to see the dry line really move on through. The dry line is essentially another word for a cold front in this instance, but it's not similar to a cold front because it won't really drop your temperatures too much. But there is your line of instability that's moving on through, or your boundary that's going to form some of your showers and thunderstorms. But you can also see these little showers and thunderstorms out in front of it. And this is what I'm the most concerned about for this event, because you'll see here as this continues to progress over the next couple of hours, boom, you have some little kinks within this, these storms as well that could potentially be tornadic as well. So this is really something to kind of monitor. If any of these storms can kind of, get its act together, I would not be surprised if we see 1, 2, 3, maybe a few tornadoes within this event here, due to the fact that we have an environment that's somewhat favorable for it. So definitely something to watch out for. Once again, we're getting towards the dusk hours here now, 6, 7 p.m. And then this starts to kind of whittle down a little bit more. You still have some supercells, some showers and thunderstorms that can continue to be significant even into the overnight hours. But this thing should really start to clear up by sometime around midnight. And, when I mean clear up, I mean the main event should be pretty much done and over with. But I don't want to completely, give you guys the idea that, oh, the event's over, there's nothing to really, be cautious about. Well, overnight, there could potentially be the threat for some of these showers and thunderstorms out in front of the line. Once again, that could potentially get these little makeups of supercells that could potentially produce tornadoes. So what I highly recommend people do, especially for tonight and tomorrow, as well as into Wednesday, I highly recommend you turn on your emergency alert notifications on your phone. If you have silenced that already, highly recommend you unsilence that. You make sure that your notifications are on your phone, so that you can make sure that you can get those alerts. And if you have a weather radio, please be sure to replace your batteries in it, so that way you can be safe all the way throughout the night. If you don't have a weather radio, I highly recommend you go ahead and get one. Midland makes some good ones, and those will keep you safe, especially from overnight showers and thunderstorms. As this continues to progress, though, you'll take a look and you see, well, we're getting into the morning and even the afternoon hours, and look at this. We got a couple showers and thunderstorms over here across Lafayette and Baton Rouge, and this could potentially be our next wave for showers and thunderstorms. You even see some more, thunderstorms out in front of it, very similar to the day before. And if these can actually get their act together, and you can see they've already got little mini kinks within it as well, this could be the style of event to also be somewhat similar to the day prior. So when we look at this now with our timings, you can see here that we get into Wednesday, and we've got a big line of showers and thunderstorms that are going to really kind of try and congeal over time. We're looking at 3 p.m. here, now Central Standard Time, and a big line starts to form out. Once again, any storms out in front of it or even along the line could produce some strong damaging winds and maybe even a tornado or two as this continues to move about. But once we get in towards probably the 9 to 10 p.m. hours, sure, we can still get some tornadic activity on the southern end of this line, more or less southern Alabama, as well as the panhandle of Florida. But that's really going to start to kind of be on a downward slope in regards to the actual activity and the intensity of the storm. So that's really something to kind of just make a note of. Now, we talked about the severe weather. Let's talk about the blizzard aspect of the same storm. We'll move off towards the north. You can see we got our big low pressure system, a lot of snow associated with this as well. Boom, you see across numerous states here in the northern plains as well as the upper Midwest. A lot of snow continues to kind of just sit around this area. And I mentioned how our low pressure system is strengthening. Whenever you see this number on the low pressure system drop, that is when you know that you have a strengthening low pressure system. Now, fortunately, as we continue to move this through in time, you see our actual numbers start to increase. So things might start to alleviate in regards to the stronger winds. But just something to note within that short time period of Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday morning, you have an intensifying low pressure system, which could mean that you could have some very strong winds, which is the reason why you have your blizzard warnings in effect. And that is the case here because we're at 20Z on Tuesday, which is Tuesday afternoon, and you see a lot of these pinks and these purples right within this area. This is where your snow is practically going to be. And when you have your strong winds like this in upwards of 30 knots, which could be about 35 to maybe even a little under 40 miles per hour, as well as some heavy snowfall rates, that could lead to some very hazardous travel, and people over there should not be driving under any circumstance within this style of event. So with that being said, we talked about all that snow. As I said, that there's going to be 2 waves of snow up here near the Duluth area, as well as the upper portions of Michigan, as well as portions of Wisconsin. You guys could potentially even see an upwards of 2 feet of snow in some of those areas as well. Meanwhile, over here in South Dakota, you guys are practically going to be the crosshairs of this event from the main low pressure system. I would not be surprised if you guys saw 1.5 feet to even 2 feet of snow within your area. So that should be something that you guys should watch out for as time progresses. We'll move off now towards our nor'easter, and we mentioned in our last stream or our last video that this is somewhat a little bit more difficult to predict. For one, mainly because we were relatively far away from the event, so things could change. And this is no different than what we have mentioned before, because as you guys can see, things kind of change a little bit. Instead of the snow being a little bit further south and east, it is receded a little bit further towards the north and west. So we have a lot more rain that starts to come in towards the mid-Atlantic, as well as areas along the coastal vicinity of the Northeast and New England. And so by the time this thing moves in sometime along Thursday and further off into Friday evening, we see a lot of rain for areas along the East Coast and a lot of snow further inland. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the ice totals are now going to recede further north as well. So areas that were over here near North Carolina, notice how your ice totals have completely depleted, no longer there. It's areas now that are for portions of the Eastern Panhandle and portions of Northern Virginia along the Shenandoah River Valley, as well as areas further into portions of Central and Western Pennsylvania. Your ice totals have now gone up. So freezing rain and ice is going to be a huge issue for travel. And people along I-68 over here, riding along the western portions of Maryland, I highly recommend you avoid that. That is going to be a nightmare. If you can somehow avoid that, somehow even get around 81, because 81 parallels this as well. Those 2 interstates, as well as potentially even the Turnpike and 70, those are going to be huge issues. Expect major delays in travel and potentially even some very dangerous to life-threatening travel over here for portions of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, as well as even into portions of Virginia. Now, that also means that our snow has also receded a bit further north, and you can see that here, that with this output from the Euro model, a lot of our snow doesn't seem to be as heavy as it was in Pennsylvania as it was before, I should say. It's not as heavy as it was before, and it has now moved further off towards the upstate New York area. The heaviest snow totals can probably be anticipated somewhere near Watertown, New York, and a lot of our snow totals also continue to increase across portions of Vermont and New Hampshire. So definitely something to monitor with that. And we also see that there could potentially be some lake effect snow here on the southern portions of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So that might be something to watch out for even after this event. But I also want to mention here as well that this is a different input. This is a different, opinion from a different model called the Global Forecasting System, the GFS model. And you see the snow has receded a bit further to the south and east. So depending upon, as I mentioned earlier, the placement of our low pressure system, all right, depending upon the placement, whether it is further east, further west, that will determine as to where your snow will be. If the low pressure system moves further east, the snow will recede further towards the south and east. And if it moves further west, it will be pushed further towards the north and west. So a lot of uncertainties with that event still, but we can anticipate that there will be some form of major ice event within this, as well as the potential for some heavy snow across portions of Pennsylvania, New York, and even the stages of New England within this event. So a lot of stuff that's going to be watched out for. I will be live streaming tomorrow. So please be sure to come back to the channel. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can stay up to date with when I do go live. I will be talking about that event extensively throughout its existence, or at least until the latter stages of Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, if you did like it, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Follow me on social media as well. Link will be in the description down below, and I will catch you guys in tomorrow's live stream. So peace out.